Members, the first bill we have on our agenda today is Representative Moeller. And this bill is going to be laid over for possible inclusion. I'll move the bill, House File 3516, and I understand we have an amendment.
That is correct, Mr. Chair and members. I believe it is the A1 amendment.
I'll move the A1 amendment, and if you want to explain what that does.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This was feedback that we received from the Commissioner of DLI. Because of this, the drug testing we're doing, they don't have the expertise to be able to approve these tests or not, so that's why we're removing them from the bill.
Any questions on the amendment? If not, all in favor of the A1 amendment to put the bill in the shape that the author wants, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Amendment's adopted. Welcome to the committee, Chair Moeller, and if you want to explain your bill.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Well, it is an honor to be here. I don't often have bills that come before your committee, so this is fun for me. And also, what makes this even better for me is that this is a constituent-led bill. And you will hear from my constituent here in a little bit, but basically he reached out to me during the interim and said that his employer wants to be able to hire people quickly. They do drug testing of these potential employees, but under current statute, people have to go off to a different location to a lab to have this drug testing. And as a result of that delay, not because people are using drugs, but just that delay, they decide to go work somewhere else. And with the workforce shortage that they're having, it means that they're not able to get their employers, but also it means that employees who would pass these tests can't get started working right away. So the meat of our bill is really, it starts at line 3.14. Everything else is just to make it consistent with that, where it's allowing for these quick tests to be done pre-employment, the quick test saliva test. So if somebody is offered a job, they do the test, they pass the test, they are able to start working right away. It's a win-win for the employee and the employer. If the test is either negative, or well, I guess would be positive or inconclusive, then they would have to go ahead and do that laboratory test, that other procedure. But my constituent is here and is happy to talk about this idea that he brought to my attention.
Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you. My name is Todd Gaynor, and happy to be here. Thanks for hearing from me today. I'm here as a constituent of Representative Moeller's district, and I'm here to advocate for this policy change, which would permit the use of these rapid saliva tests. So I'm the general manager of Distribution Center for Veyer Logistics, which is the supply chain division of Office Depot. And in my 20-plus years as a hiring manager, I've experienced the challenging that the current statute has on the applicants and the friction that it has within the hiring process. So because the current statute requires samples to be retained for confirmatory testing if the applicant would prefer that at some point, it means that you have to go off-site to a clinic. And therefore, the applicant has to make these arrangements to go to the clinic on their own time and at their own transportation expense. And entry-level warehouse work that we do, a lot of these applicants do not have transportation, so that's not an easy process for them to have to go off-site and get to a lab within the lab hours. They may also have another job that they're working, which could make it difficult for them to also get to the clinic, within that time window that they have to go there. So, in addition to them having to deal with the transportation, this also just adds the lead time that Kelly was mentioning. That instead of getting this fast tracked with a instant drug test, you had the whole lag time that goes into them getting to the site and then the test results coming back. So I've seen numerous cases, quite actually a decent percentage of cases where we've extended a job offer and then we don't consummate the transaction because the drug testing never gets completed and the applicant abandons kind of the job at that point. So all the effort that you went through and they went through, both to meet and to agree and extend an offer and then them accept the offer, and then this kind of just becomes a friction point in that process. So my company, Veyer Logistics, has operations throughout the U.S., and in most states, the use of these rapid saliva drug tests is permitted. And so that process creates a fast track to those applicants that we extend the job offer at the end of the interview. They do the drug testing right then. And so therefore, that part of the process is immediately completed. And in the states where we're doing this saliva testing, it has meant that over 99% of the applicants get fast-tracked and immediately pass that. And again, I just, again, to reiterate that this proposal keeps in place the protections for the job applicant in the event that one of the tests comes back as inconclusive or presumptive positive. Then they would begin the process that is currently in place now. So really, this is just hopefully steering a large majority, if not 99%, away from having to go through that process. And it's there as a safety net in case it's needed if there is, the test doesn't come back clear. So that's kind of the main kind of basis for why I approached Representative Moeller on this.
Thank you, Mr. Gaynor. Is there any questions of the author? Representative Mecklen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question probably for the testifier, or perhaps the bill author knows. Is there a percentage of false negatives that you're aware of?
I can only, sorry.
Mr. Gaynor?
Oh, thank you. I can only speak anecdotally. I don't have concrete data that we've collected, but my peers in other distribution centers around the network says it's almost never seen. It's very rare. I was talking to my peer in Chicago, and he's like, it's been a couple years since I've had an incident where that's occurred, and we're hiring on a consistent basis in our organization. So,
Representative Mecklen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Should a false negative come back and then there was to be an on-the-job injury of some sort, who would have the liability at that point?
Mr. Gaynor.
Oh, thank you. Again, I apologize. I'll get the hang of that.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, if somebody had a positive, whether false or not, you're still in the process of the contingent job offer. And so at that point, they would then go to the clinic for the full testing with the current process there, whether it's urine or whatever that testing is. So they wouldn't be working at that point yet until they've actually cleared the drug testing piece. So if I understood the question correctly.
Mr. Gaynor, I think he was asking a false negative.
Oh,
So that was, or somebody
Yep.
passed the test and then maybe later on used and then.
Well, actually, Mr. Chair, not even, so if you hire them and it came back negative and it shows nothing, but then if there was to be an on-the-job accident, and then of course there's going to be a test now, and they test positive, would there be a liability issue and who owns it at that point?
Mr. Gaynor.
thank you. Yeah, at that point, I mean, once you've cleared the threshold of the pre-employment drug testing, they're just an employee at that point. So there's no look back to the original drug test to see if there was a concern. Like that exists today, right? We could have somebody pass a drug test, have an accident, get tested, be positive. There isn't a look back to that point in time because you also won't know if the drug behavior is brand new or if it is, has been around for a long time. So in my opinion, again, I can't legally testify in any way, but I've never seen a case where we would look back to that original drug testing. It's one point in time at the point of pre-employment, and then it's done as far as that goes.
Representative Mecklen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So somebody, if they took one of these tests and they came back negative, they would not actually start working that specific day. Would that be a fair statement?
Mr. Gaynor.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, that's okay.
I'll get there.
Even members who haven't been here a long time sometimes forget that. But
Thank you. Yeah, so no, generally speaking, you still have additional steps to, in my organization at least I can speak to, you got to create an employee number and you got to get them set up in the system. And so usually there's a start date that you do end up agreeing on. Again, this is all part of the interview / pre-employment process, right? So So the drug testing, whether it's immediate and oral, or if it's at the clinic, it's still just a technical thing that needs to get accomplished before you start working. And so, no, we've never started anybody the exact same day that the job offer has been extended.
Representative Mecklen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One quick other one. Do you know, and I don't know if either one of you two would know, but are these PCR tests? Are you, either one of you, are you familiar or aware what type of test? I mean, the testing policy or procedure that they're using?
Mr. Gaynor or Chair Moeller?
I can't, I'm not sure. We've used one particular brand in our organization called Oral Tox, and I know a lot of these things end up getting FDA approved or FDA 510 approved. So I don't know exactly what specific testing methodology they use.
Representative Mecklen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm guessing to Representative Mueller that that's probably why you deleted some of this out, because that'll be determined as far as what they're going to decide to use for this going forward. But
Chair Moeller.
Well, that's right, yeah. The commissioner, they just, like they said, they aren't experts in that kind of thing. I will say the technology is really good and it's improving. I think probably when this law was written before that, I don't even know if this type of testing was even something available, but these types of tests continue to get better and better.
And Representative Mecklen, I understand that the State Patrol is testing some methods on that, and because there is no test out there right now that's legally, that I understand is legally, they can take to court, but they're testing some of that stuff out voluntarily at the current time.
exactly, and that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Mecklen. Any further questions? Representative Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative Moeller, and to your testifier as well. My question is just when we're looking at what exists out there in the world today over the reliability and validity of these tests, can you provide some additional information? Have you brought anything else to the committee to help us in guidance as to whether we can rely upon this test as an accurate depiction of the health and well-being of an applicant?
Chair Moeller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the question. I don't have that. I'm happy to kind of do a little more digging and look into that. I know Mr. Gaynor has some information from Oral Tox, the company he mentioned, about how they do this type of testing. And he has sent me some information, too, about the federal, I can't remember what you called it, but some sort of federal approval that's done. I'm happy to provide that information as well. I don't know if Mr. Gaynor has anything more to add on that.
Mr. Gaynor.
Yeah, I can't say that I'm like an expert in the data behind it. I think that, again, seeing that 39 other states are using this currently, and some of them have absolutely no stipulations, and I think what we're here in Minnesota saying is we're still going to stipulate it to being pre-employment versus wide scale, that it's prevalent in the marketplace now. It's being used by all these other states. And again, I can share that, in my other markets that we're using this, we've had no concerns with it. We've had almost zero of them come back where they're saying inconclusive. And especially in the absence of testing for THC now currently, we wouldn't expect to actually even see any positives with this, and we haven't in Illinois where they've been THC has not been tested for a while. So what I can say is that in the states we're doing it, it's like 99% plus are just they're passing, and this box is being checked in the employment process.
Representative Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do appreciate hearing that. I'm glad to hear that it's working well in other states. I also believe that, we want to make our state policies reflect the sort of technology that's advancing in our world today. And so I appreciate bringing this bill forward, and I think it does, from what I'm seeing, it provides a lot of flexibility to meet our Minnesota standards. But I do think that Representative Moeller, if you can continue to provide additional details as to the reliability of the testing, I think that would be helpful for everybody involved, just so we're not heading into this. If we end up passing this bill this session or as a part of a larger bill, that we are fully aware of what we're heading into with this regard. Thank you.
And Representative Schultz, I was going to say the same thing, that if you can get us that additional information, we're laying this over for possible inclusion. So when this comes back in a bigger bill, that we can have that information and have it on the floor when the bill's going forward. And I see you're taking those notes. So any other questions? If not, thank you. We'll lay this over for possible inclusion, and thank you, Mr. Gaynor, and thank you, Chair Moeller.